Alrighty, guys, how you going? Welcome back to another American Reacts. This is going to be a pretty interesting one, and this is all in good fun here. This is Australia versus United States. Good old USA. Who would win in a military comparison? And this is just more out of curiosity for some numbers and some stats, just for fun. The best part is we're mates, right? Americans love Australians, and usually vice versa. I know I have an amazing group of Australians in our community, our fan base, whatever you want to call it. I love Australia, and I love America. So they're definitely allies, definitely friends, mates, however you want to cut it. Right before we start, I'm going to mention what I would know right off the bat. And without getting into every fact I know or everything that I can think of, the simple ones that would just stand out immediately are, for one, the United States we know has more population by about tenfold, right? Which is crazy. Even more than tenfold, actually. Also, spending. I think it's no secret that United States spends more than probably any other country in the world. We like to spend a lot on our military, and with the combination of lots of people and a lot of spending, no doubt that the United States probably will win this military comparison, but it'll just be fun to watch and to see what you guys come up with down below in the comments. So here we go. Let's check it out. I almost forgot. This is from the infographic show, so make sure to check it out in the description down below as always. All right, now here we go.
Military comparison. This time we are featuring two fairly new countries, nations that at one point in time were colonies of the United Kingdom. The USA gained its independence on July 4th, 1776. Australia gained its independence on January 1st, 1901, when the Brits passed legislation to give the 6 Australian colonies the right to govern themselves under the Commonwealth of Australia. Unlike the USA, the country sometimes called Down Under has not vied for world dominance, although it has enjoyed a fairly good standard of living and economic prosperity. The countries are certainly not enemies unless you play Grand Theft Auto, which pits them head-to-head in a fictional conflict.
Of course.
How would they fare against each other if that were a reality? That's what we're going to find out today in this episode of the infographic show, Australia versus the United States.
Nice.
Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button so that you can be part of our notification squad. Let's start with Australia. At around 2,969,907 square miles, the country is the 6th largest in the world. Much of it is uninhabited, as many of Australia's population live close to the coast on different sides of the country.
How wild is that?
If you look at population density maps, you will see just how much of Australia's 24,659,200 people are huddled into small chunks of the country. Australia's indigenous Aboriginal people may have lived in the harsh environment of Central Oz, but for most Australians, much of their huge country is a no man's land. Australia's nominal GDP for 2016 was $1.257 trillion, making it the 13th largest GDP in the world.
You know what? That's pretty good. 13th largest in the world. And look at that. I mean, 24 million actually is a lot, right? That's a big number. But in retrospect, there's a lot of countries in the world and a lot that have way more than that. I mean, for an American, that doesn't sound like a lot because, like Chicago, where I'm from, right? Chicago greater metro area has around 9 million people, just under 3 million in the city alone, which is already a fraction of that, right? You take somewhere crazy big like New York or Los Angeles, those metros have arguably the same number as this or even more. So totally crazy. I think the state of California has more people than all of Australia. That's pretty nuts.
Just above
so
Spain
their GDP
and just
is
below
very
Russia.
strong in my opinion.
GDP per capita is $49,927. Now, let's turn to some USA basics. The USA is also a very large country at 3,790,000.
Not that this is totally accurate, but I mean, look at the lights there. Like, you can see the density is going to be way more in the USA. Though, what is interesting, look at the eastern. If you split it in two, look at the eastern USA, how populated it is. And then, of course, the Wild West, right? The beautiful, scenic, mountainous West. Look at how less populated it is. Of course, you just have big population belts up here in Washington, around Seattle and Portland, Oregon. And then, of course, the coast in California. But other than that, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Idaho, all these interior states, way less populated, apparently, than the eastern states. Very interesting.
97,000 square miles, although it's way more crowded than Australia. This makes it the third largest country behind Canada and Russia, although it is very similar in size to China. It has a population of 325,365,000. The US GDP is $19.417 trillion and $57,466 per
Crazy
capita.
population difference.
We could say the US has the world's biggest economy, but many experts now say this is China. The International Monetary Fund, CIA Factbook, and
it's pretty close. USA's economy is unbelievable, but so is China. In my opinion, that'd have to go to China.
World Bank all say China is number one. An interesting article recently published by Pew Global explains that various countries around the world have a different opinion on who has the biggest GDP, with slightly more countries believing the USA is still the larger economy. One thing we know for sure is that the USA spends a lot more on its military than any other country in the world, and by a country mile too. Its military is regarded as the strongest in the world, and it probably should be, with a $611 billion defense budget.
And that's not me being an ignorant American. If you're, not new to this channel, you know that I am proud to be American, but I'm also a realist. I know we're not the best at everything. That's ridiculous. Like, nowhere near. We're just a good country. We're not even in the top 10 in a lot of categories. So I know that, but it is factual that I do believe that we would have the strongest military. I mean, it's kind of just logic based on that we spend so much. I would hope we'd have one of the best militaries,
which is about 3.3% of the GDP. That was for 2016, and sometimes the figure is stated as slightly less. For 2017, Donald Trump's budget for defense is around $587 billion, which is by far the biggest chunk of the USA's discretionary budget. More than a third of that goes to operations and maintenance, with just less than a quarter on military personnel. The most expensive program at the moment are those rather pricey F-35 Joint Strike Fighters.
I was going to say, because I think the F-22 program is done, but yeah, F-35s are outrageous.
The budget for those alone was $11.6 billion in 2016 and will be $10.5 billion in 2017.
Be fun to fly,
put that into perspective, the Environmental Protection Agency is allocated just $7.65 billion for 2017. Australia doesn't spend much by comparison, but is still 12th on the list of the biggest defense spenders in the world. Some sources put Brazil ahead and some behind. For 2017, it will spend $24.1 billion US dollars. According to the Australian government, it's going to spend big over the next decade, with some military media stating that the country intends to become a lethal military force. The Ministry of Defense said recently that it has a commitment to security and stability around the globe, as relations between various countries seem tenuous at the moment. Much of the money spent will go to the Navy, which is not surprising given the country's geographical location. It has also joined in the spending frenzy on the aforementioned F-35 Joint Strike Fighters. What do these two countries get for their money? In terms of feet on the ground, out of the USA's 325 million people, 1.3 million are active military personnel, and a further 811,000 act as reserve personnel. This is much larger than Australia's 61,000 active personnel and 20.
Look at that difference. Holy smokes. That's actually kind of surprising. That's my first surprise here. I knew it would obviously be less because of the size difference, but only 61,000 from Australia. Wow. That seems kind of low, but I don't know.
21,000 reserves. Not surprisingly, the USA also has a lot more land equipment. In total, it has 5,884 tanks, 41,000 armored fighting vehicles, 1,934 self-propelled guns, 1,299 towed artillery, and 1,331 multiple launch rocket systems. Only China and easily Russia outgun the USA when it comes to tank strength. This also includes some of the most fierce land equipment ever, consisting of the mighty M1 Abrams tank, the world's best according to some pundits, the M109A6 Paladin self-propelled gun, and the tried and tested TOW anti-tank missile. Australia has just 59 tanks, 2,040 armored fighting vehicles, 0 self-propelled artillery, 75 towed artillery, and 0 multiple launch.
This is more radically different than I thought. I knew it would be different. That's not a surprise. But geez, and this is not a knock on anyone. This is not a knock on the USA or not a knock on Australia. It's just interesting to me. I'm just curious. I thought it'd be a fun video. But wow, is that way different. 59 tanks versus almost 6,000. 2,000 armored vehicles versus 41,000. 0, SPGs, 0 MLSRs. It's just radically different, right? It's weird. Dang, we spend a lot. That is kind of crazy, right? Oh my goodness. Oh, so that's where all my high taxes go. Okay.
rocket systems.
But hey,
it does have some good tanks though, which in the past were the highly rated Leopard 1s, but they have been replaced with M1 Abrams, just in much smaller quality than that of the USA. Where the United States exceeds every country on the planet is with its Air Force. As you know, the US is not shy on spending big here, and it is almost spoiled for choice. It has around 13,444 aircraft in total, many of which are the best ever made.
Yeah, that is one thing I am super patriotic about. Anything airplanes, especially Air Force, naturally. And I love going to air shows, and yes, U.S. military aircraft is just incredible, man. F-22As, F-16, F-15E, F-A-18, F-A-18 Hornets, F-14 Tomcats. You name it. There's so many awesome fighting aircraft that, just makes me drool. Like, it's so fun. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of aircraft. I wanted to join the Air Force. Quick trivia, but you see these. That was a quick no just because of these alone. Not to mention to fly those, you have to be near perfect specimen. And I mean, come on. I'm good, but I'm not perfect. I kid. But you get the point. Those are the best of the best. So, yeah. American Air Force is certainly something to behold. It's pretty cool.
Scores of F-22A Raptors, F-16 Fighting Falcons, F-15E Strike Eagles, and the expensive F-35A Lightning II. The U.S. also has a large fleet of the McDonnell Douglas CF-18 Hornets, some of which have been converted to FA-18E Super Hornets. We already know Australia has spent on the F-35, but a rather startling piece of news emerged in September, and that was that its two brand new F-35s have a major problem. They don't work, according to Australian media. The USA has also had its fair share of problems trying to get these things combat ready. Australian news reported that the planes will likely require many millions being sunk into reconstruction and upgrade before they are fully capable of fighting on the front line. The country has a total of 465 aircraft, just over 150 of which are fighter and attack aircraft. It also has a small fleet of FA-18F Super Hornets and FA-18A and B Hornets, as well as EA-18G Growlers. As for the Navy, global firepower puts the USA as the third strongest behind China and North Korea. This is only in size though. It puts Australia down in 54th place. In total, the USA has 415 ships and Australia has 47 ships. The US has a total of 11 aircraft carriers, 22 cruisers, 67 destroyers, 8 frigates, 75 submarines, 0 corvettes, 9 amphibious assault ships, 11 mine warfare ships, and 55 patrol ships. We also have to take into account what all wealthy countries want, and that's a huge super carrier. America may have the best in the Gerald R. Ford class super carrier. Australia is also one of few nations to own aircraft carriers. While they might not be the behemoths of the US Navy, the almost new HMAS Canberra and the HMAS Adelaide are impressive beasts.
Guys, I feel your pain. He said Canberra. It's Canberra. But hey, he said Adelaide, right, I guess? But yeah, Canberra, Adelaide, that's cool.
The Aussies also own 11 frigates, 0 destroyers, 0 corvettes, 6 submarines, 13 patrol craft, and 6 mine warfare ships. Another thing, as you all know, the USA owns just less than half of all the world's 15,000 nuclear weapons. Australia doesn't have any and doesn't seem interested in developing them. It does, however, have aircraft that could deliver them.
For those watching who are regular viewers, I will be updating you soon about some of you think that I am not home, which you might be correct, because of one of my videos was filmed in a kitchen that didn't look familiar. But I'll give you a hint, and I won't be answering it until I reveal it, but maybe you can speculate. I am somewhere that's very close to a history with developing a nuclear bomb.
In conclusion, these two countries have been strong allies for a very long time. If anything did happen to break that bond, America is far too powerful for Australia. The only chance Australia would have is that harsh environment its people are used to living in. Maybe all those dangerous creatures that inhabit the country would get on side. So, what do you think of this theoretical?
Well, there it is. Nothing much other than some facts and just some interesting stuff to think about. That was just a fun comparison. So tell me your thoughts down below. Was it a bigger difference than you thought? Did you think they would be more neck and neck? I would love to hear it down below. I thought that the American stuff would be way more over the top, like way more number of, equipment and much more spent. I'll admit I was a little shocked. It was more difference than I thought personally. With that being said, luckily it's not an issue because Australia and USA are not clashing. They are awesome allies. I love you, Australia, and hopefully you guys love the United States. I really do believe it is a beautiful friendship. So there you have it. Rooster says Bunnings owns more than 1,000 nukes. That's pretty funny. I'm assuming, of course, Bunnings is the hardware store, the massive one, kind of like our Home Depot. Imagine that either means one of two things. Either he's referring to the sausage sizzle, something to do with that, or more so, I think he's referring to Bunnings has like everything. It's like a gigantic store with stuff that you might not ever need. And maybe they just have, jokingly, they have nukes there because why not? They have everything else. I'm assuming that's what that means, but either way, it does strike me as pretty funny. And then, of course, Captain Bob says Australia would unleash the Ashes, magpies, and all of our other deadly animals. That's so true, right? There you have it, guys. What did you think of that? Leave a like on there if you got an enjoyment from that. Subscribe for more stuff like this. Check out the description for this original video from Infographics. And, of course, other ways you can support my channel. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Until next time, guys. Catch you later.